Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Bronze Reaper podcast. I'm your host, Oroshlin Perkins, and today we got a good show. We will be talking about the Ellis Island story, also known as the White Immigration Voyage. Before there were red natives and black natives. After the red natives and black natives came, we had colonizers. And after the colonizers, they wanted to whiten up this nation. They brought immigrants over here, white immigrants. So I'm going to say this. We make jokes about, the Haitians. We catch the Haitians coming over here on a banana boat. What you think the white man was on? So when he got here, coming through Ellis Island. So shout out to the Haitians and the white immigrants. And I'll say this: there were Caribbeans that went through Ellis Island too, but most of these immigrants that came over here through Ellis Island was white. A, a white race, no human. So if you know that what I know about Ellis Island, and it's not that much. And as I've been telling people for years, white Americans are immigrants. You know, they're second and third generation Americans. And I'm gonna say this also. If you're a white man or a white woman or just a white audience member, put it this way: you got a 60-40 of being an immigrant or an Ellis Island baby. We got anchor babies, but before anchor babies, there were Ellis Island babies, and 60-40% of y'all niggas was Ellis Island babies. So I know I make fun of people who are anchor babies and shit, like, but you white people were anchor babies too at once. And a lot of y'all white people didn't like each other. So this is why I always say this, and I really mean it when I do say it. I said white Americans or white people in general cannot get along with each other. And this is the reason why. Um, I don't know if it's a classism problem that y'all have or a geographic issue, a demographic issue. I don't know. That's over my pay grade. But your combo, all y'all common enemies were Black Americans, or yeah, Black Americans, as we can say, or the Black race. Um, if you think I'm gonna say this, if you think I came on this show to make fun of y'all and stuff, no, that's not it. But it is to tell a story about where y'all came from and how y'all have culture. I have been telling people for years and generations, well, years, that white Americans are immigrants. You know, this is what makes Black Americans the purest Americans of all, is because we don't bring culture, we make culture. We are the culture. You know, when white people come over here to America, they bring culture, and there's nothing wrong with bringing culture. You just have to understand that's your culture. You know, I will even say this: the things that y'all have coined and popularized were potatoes and Rice Krispie treats. You know, I wouldn't. I really don't eat off of people like that. But if I'm gonna eat off a white person, it will be definitely be Rice Krispie treats. Man, I think y'all make the greatest Rice Krispie treats of all time. Ain't nobody can make better Rice Krispie treats than y'all. So shout out to the white community on making the Rice Krispie treats. And also too, Malaikum Salam Ali Howard. How's everything? You know, I'll say this. Um, One thing I want to say is even the small hats were Inca babies too. You know, some of them came over here and brought their culture. You know, if people don't know, Al Capone was he was a half of a small hat. You know, so definitely they brought violence too. The first drive by were white people. You know, that's not. I'll say this: it started being popularized, excuse me, in the '60s with Black Americans. Did Black Americans do it in the '30s and '40s with the Italians? Yeah, because everybody was running numbers and selling drugs at that time. The '30s, '40s, maybe '50s, but it wasn't really popularized by Black Americans. It has always been an Italian, Jewish, white supremacist thing. You know, even the white man, white supremacist has been doing it. You know, I personally don't like to put the coat on all white people with the white supremacy because not everybody is a white supremacist or not everybody's good at being a white supremacist. You know, David Duke was a great white supremacist, but you know, it's just it is what it is. I'm gonna talk for another 10, 15 minutes and we're gonna start the show. We got like five, maybe six videos to go through. Some of these videos are less than 10 minutes, there's some 20 minutes. But we will learn about Ellis Island today, where the white supremacists came from. You know, I'm sorry, not the white supremacists, white people came from, you know. Um this is why I always tell people I don't get it when they say I'm not familiar with the Ellis Island stories. Thanks for today's scholarship. We're gonna be learning about it together. I was, you know, streaming one day and I was like, yo, because I always told people this for years. Black Americans are the purest Americans in this country. You know, so if you know about Ellis Islands, and I'm gonna say this, Caribbeans again, Caribbeans came from Ellis Island too. Maybe I'm not too sure. Cicely Tyson's one of our riders. Cicely Tyson, she's a Jamaican, but you know, she's still Jamaican. She's still of Jamaican descent, and shout out to her. Her family came over here to build Panama Bridge. They just never left, you know. But those are the one of the people that I'm happy that stayed in America and never didn't go back to Jamaica. You know, made a better life for her, and she even contributed to civil rights, to the civil rights struggle. So again, shout out to Cicely Tyson's and God rest her soul. You know, um, yeah, there was a lot of people, but I'm gonna say this: there was like 13 to probably 14 million white supremacists. I mean, white people that came from Ellis Island or white immigrants that came from Ellis Island. Um, like that's why I said they have a 60-40 chance of being an Ellis Islander. You know, and as I said, and everybody said I was wrong, and I said Black Americans are the purest Americans in this country. It's because we built the country, we contribute. Why is only put it this way? Why is only 13% of people contribute half of what this country has? And I'm talking about inventions, scholar, you know, social construct. Half of it has been Black Americans, you know, and I'm talking about collectively. You know, it has been Black Americans. So it's always something to think about, you know, with Ellis Islands. As I said, I am learning about it. I know a little bit about it, but not as much. And this is why we will be watching it. We do have a 30-minute video, but we will figure out the dark side of the Ellis Islands too. Because also, a lot of these people, and I'm going to say this some of these people who came over here to this country just got last names, you know? They were given last names, you know? This is why I said there a lot of these a lot of and I might be defending Africans and Caribbeans today, but as I have been saying, they came over here on a banana boat too, or a potato boat, as we would call it, a potato boat. They came from the slums of Europe. You know, and don't forget, the Moors built that country and they destroyed it within 800 years. They destroyed it. And they're still struggling over there. So it's, I don't know if I could say it's their fault, but it's their fault to not knowing how to build, infiltrate, great things. I mean, infiltrate there. I mean, not even infiltrate. How they can't blend in or adapt to their own community. This is why they had to come over here to America. When they came over here to America, America was already built. All they have done is what the Asians did. They have expanded. You know, they didn't do anything, super unique. They just expanded the country as fast if Black Americans were doing it. Because don't forget, a lot of us was still fighting. You know, a lot of us has done all the heavy work. This is why when we talk about reparations, this is a good point to say that, like, a lot of y'all Ellis Island babies came over here with y'all hands out. Y'all came out here with your hands out. And some of y'all have got the trinkets that the government was giving y'all. All this, oh yeah, we were working hard and all this. We don't need to hear that. You worked hard to get here. You reap the benefits of this country just just about being built already. All you have done is gotten a job, and turned on each other. You know, the the whites that were already here, they weren't nice to the Polish or the Germans or the Jewish people or the British or the Irish. They weren't nice to them. They do what they always done. They claim them of stealing something that they already stole. It's like me, I steal your car and stuff like that. You steal the car, and I call and I cry foul. Like, look at Rosalind stealing. Why Rosalind stealing? Jesus Christ, he's a thief. Not knowing that I stole the, I mean, not knowing that I stole the car too. Like, all you can say is whatever's good for the geese is good for the gander. So give me a second, everybody. I'm sorry, but just give me a second. Mm, but yeah, whatever's good for the geese is good for the gander, everybody. And this is how whites were to other whites. Now in 2026, everybody's white. You know, even the Irish, the Germans, the Jews are white. A lot of these people are white. Can we say that they fought hard to be white and to be accepted in the white in this white country, as people call it? And I always tell people it comes with the territory of doing business in America. I do think people have to understand as well too. When these people came over here, um, they have gotten opportunities, even though people used to call them lazy and violent. Oh, I forgot the Italians too. The Italians came over here on the boat too. So Caribbeans don't feel too bad. White people came over here on a boat too. They scammed themselves through this boat too. It's just y'all went through Florida, they went through DC. You know what they were doing in 1892, you're doing in 2026. So, and y'all are not that far, so that's a good thing, I guess. So it's shout out to Haiti, man, and all the rest of the folks. I will say this. Give me a second. All right, let me fix that. All right. So I will say this. I myself believe that some of these people can stay in this country. You know, and not because hold on a second. I hope my kids didn't take my joint. Okay, cool. But yeah, I believe that if I'll say this: immigration is bad. It does, and I say this: immigration affects mostly Black Americans because we're only 13% of the country. When you add on other people who are similar to us, it says, "Oh yeah, we are getting people of color." And I don't think that's the real that it's not the real story that we are seeing. If you're wondering, I'm drinking coffee. That's it. You know, I do believe Ellis Island. Ellis Island is what Ellis Island is to the white history is to what Miami is to Haiti. You know, they both came from their country to a country that was already being built, um, probably already built. In the 1892, everybody was out here making money. We were all doing good out here. And that's good, but at the end of the day, you got to tip your hat off to the people that built the country. And it's the people that weren't from Ellis Island. Give me a second, everybody. Hold on. And it's sad to say this. I believe now this is why a lot of white Americans are against each other is because it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. With the Germans, the people who were already Germans over here in America that came through Ellis Island, it's going to be different from the Irish that came from maybe Ellis Island or years ago when niggas was busting them in the face with potatoes and shit. That's how vicious the, these British people was. They used to take potatoes and just throw it at the Irish. Yeah. They used to say some foul shit about the Irish people, and I'm not trying to cause no division with white people. Y'all are already divided, but at the end of the day, we have to tell the story of what really happened. You know, I personally believe this is why we have cultural difference through the white communities. And I'm talking about, yes, we can blame the liberals and the conservatives, but what is the deeper what is the deeper story? What is the dark story that they're not telling us, and why they don't like each other? Could it be money? Could be money. Could be fit. Could be. Could it feel like, oh yeah, this is an opportunity, or can it be like, oh yeah, they're embarrassed? Free Diddy. What's going on, Imperio? Salute. It could be a lot, but at the end of the day, you got to understand a lot of these, the white race came from Ellis Island, came through Ellis Island, and Ellis Island is a part of their story. They shouldn't be embarrassed about it because they came over here like Haitians, you know? Like, let's personally be honest. As much as white people hate the Irish, I mean, hate the Haitians, don't forget, a lot of them came on boats like Haitians. We just don't call it banana boats. We call it a potato boat. So, and it's not like, again, it's not to beat up on y'all people, but at the end of the day, y'all can't. Let me ask y'all a question. If I shot somebody and I seen you shoot somebody, and I'll be like, yo, you know what? Blasey Blah needs to go to jail, man. He just shot somebody. I don't think that was necessary. He should have came over here. He should have came over here like everybody else came over here. Knowing that you came over there, I mean, no, I'm sorry because I just changed it up. Like the whole reason of me saying that's like me saying like, yo, why are you over here? You need to come over here the way that everybody else came over here, and not knowing that white people came over here like all these immigrants came over here. This is why I'm like, again, I will say I'm fully strong of saying black Americans are the purest Americans. Not all of us came over here on a boat. The difference is my Italian baby mother peeps came from Italy, got grants to open up restaurants on land. It's blacks. They got in the house. They got in the house. Cool. When did they come over here? If they came over here in the 50s, they came through Ellis Island. You know. And this is what we're talking about. They came through over here with through Ellis Island, and sometimes this is something to think about. Imperial. Why do white people can't get along? This might be the reason why they can't get along because it's a cultural difference. This might be an embedded cultural difference. Don't forget, we had the Polish coming over here. We had the Germans. We had the Italians. We had the Dutch. We had the Jews. All of them on a boat coming over here, and again, they came over here smelling like God knows what. Half the time they didn't even know if they were black or not because they were so dirty on that boat. You know, if every black person got a white person for an ex, had black babies like my white mom did, whites out here. Yeah, that's true. I agree with you, Legacy. I mean, Imperial. I apologize. I agree with you, Imperial. Um, that works. But not a lot of people will date white women. Like there's very few white women I would date. There's this one white girl I would date. Her name is Susan. She looked like a basic white girl, but I'll say this: when I met her, she stole my heart because she was so nice to me. I have white women be nice to me, and I get scared and like ghost them. But this girl, she was so nice to me. We talked about certain things, like yo, the whole 9 yards. She always called me, "Do you need anything?" Even though she knows I don't eat white, really, I don't really eat a lot of white people's cooking, because I'm scared. But I would eat the Rice Krispie treats. I think white people make the best Rice Krispies treats ever. And like y'all might think I'm playing until y'all taste the Rice Krispie treats. You're gonna be like, oh shit, a Rochelin or a Bronze, if you call me Bronze. Yo, Bronze, you wasn't lying. Them Rice Krispie treats is bomb. That's why if you notice the three biggest threats to a racist is race mixing, because that's my white grandma used to say, two white people can't make black. Yep, your Grammy's right. I'll say that. Your Grammy's right, Imperial. I say it all the time. This is why I always tell people all the time. If we use the thing, oh yeah, Black Americans are from Africa. I could say the same thing about white people. I could say the same thing about Asians, Latinos, the Fiji people, the Europeans. I could say that the Russians is from Africa. Like we can say all of this. And I will say this also. Hey, like my pops, you gotta take one for the team. Yeah, sometimes you have to. My little brother, he likes white women. I don't see nothing wrong with it. It's just I don't date white women. If I didn't meet my baby mother, I wouldn't date Asians either. So it's you know and like I always tell people all the time, man. I have been spoiled in relationships. I didn't know I still have hard times just giving women gifts because I'm not used to giving women gifts. I'm so used to women giving me gifts. You know, that's just me. Yeah, it's kind of hard for me and stuff like that. I'm not gonna lie. I have never been a gift giving person. You know, I don't like to use the word gift giving because if you know the story of Christmas, gift giving, that's what they used to call presents. So the pagans used to give little boys and used to have sex parties and drink and get freaky. They had a diddy party without lube, you know. All the kings and queens and all the rich upper class people were freaks. Yeah, and they still are, notice, everybody's sex tape is coming out, so yeah. Mm. Everybody has sex tapes nowadays, everybody want to be Lexington Steele or Mr. Marcus nowadays, and it's cool, but that's their career, We don't need to see your fucking sex tape, Keep that shit in a fucking safe like I do. I keep my freaky shit in a safe, I'm not one of those people. Oh, yo, let me show you something. Yo, look at what I was doing. One thing, one thing. I always got the women that brag. You know, and it's a very bad thing. My baby mother. One thing I could say, she don't got friends. She don't got friends like that. She got some, but it's probably work friends. I consider my audience my friends. Because I talk to y'all on a daily basis. School is coming up. My daughter gonna start school Monday, so yeah, that's a great thing. But yeah, your pops is right. Imperial. Yeah, your pops. Yeah, he's spitting some game. I tell you that. Um, I do want to start the show because I said 10, 15 minutes. I went over probably a few seconds, but yeah, we're gonna learn about Ellis Island today. I think Ellis Island is it's very important to white American history. I don't think people do know. I don't. I think, and this is me. I think a lot of these people think they came over here on the Mayflower. No, you didn't come over. You came over here as an Ellis Island baby, also known as a white anchor baby. You know, so we have to give it a title. You are Ellis Island babies. The EI babies. So, and there's nothing wrong with it. Some people migrated over here by their own boats and built the country. Other people got handouts. A lot of these people got a lot of the white race has gotten handouts. As Imperial said, yeah, they came over here, got grants and all that other stuff. So those people probably came over here in the 30s and 30s and the 50s when they started giving grants out. And shout out to them. If that's what they like to do, that's what they like to do. But let's jump into this video. Hold on one second, right here. Let's start right here and let's break this down.
My grandfather came to this country with nothing. He couldn't even speak the language. But he worked hard and he made a place for himself and his family. Now,
this is coming from a white man, and I'm gonna say this: a lot of white people have this story. They have this story, and there's nothing wrong with having a story and being an anchor baby or being a Ellis Island baby. You came over here dirtied. Black Americans cleaned you up. The white, even the other. Well, I can't even say these people, these white folks in here were clean too, but the black people cleaned you up. We taught you how to be clean. A lot of these white people didn't accept y'all. Y'all were actually niggas. The not the Germans, the Italians that white people used to call y'all guineas. They consider y'all black. Y'all just became white probably in the 40s, maybe even the 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Yes, they used to call y'all guineas. You know, I just call y'all the noodle eating niggas. Cause y'all love pasta, man. Shout out, pasta is bomb. Oh yeah, if Italian makes some pasta without the pork, I'll probably eat it. And they use like hamburger. I know this one guy. His name was actually Alfred. I don't know what his last name is. He used to own a little spaghetti spot. It was actually good. Whites have white privilege. That's cheating. That's why I'm very ashamed. Eh, I'll say this, Imperial. We can't always be excited. We can't always, have pride in everything in our culture. So don't forget, a lot of these Ellis Island babies came over here dirty, with fleas, diseases, and shit like that. That's why a lot of these people, there's a lot of these people, they killed off or they let die off in a hospital. So we'll learn more about it. Why white granny was somewhat ashamed, but she got over. Yeah, you know, she want to live for the day. She wants to YOLO. Once the YOLO came out, you only live once, so you can have a shame for so long.
why can't you people do the same? Hey, my grandfather built this country, man. He fought wars for it. And most places he went wouldn't let him sit down and get a cup of coffee. I can't even catch a cab in New York.
That's bad.
It doesn't matter how many degrees I get. All you people see is color. Your grandfather was an immigrant. My grandfather was born here, Duke. And you people still look at me as just another nigga.
Riveting history lesson, Professor.
All right, just let him go.
JC, he's right.
What did you say?
I said he's right.
Beginning tens of thousands of years ago, people migrated to North America and the land that now make up the United States. In the 16th century, new groups made the journey, coming from Europe, Africa, and Asia. Today, people continue to arrive in large numbers from every part of the globe.
I'll say this. I gotta give pushback on what he said. The Asian people came from Love Island, I believe it's called. Love Island. So if you ever have a chance, look up Love Island, put the Asian migrations, because there was Asians over here in the 1910s, probably even in the late 1800s. In the late 1800s, they were over here. So yes, it was a small percentage, but there were Asians over here in this country. Yo, they still drink. Okay, I read my son and his two rich wife. I had to get on. Yeah, like first of all, it's probably it's mostly a rich thing. They're probably used to people cleaning up for them. A lot of their parents didn't teach them to clean, you know. But if you send them to jail, they would learn how to clean because they'll be getting in fights with their roommates if they're dirty, So yeah,
Regardless of when they journeyed, they left their homelands as immigrants in search of new opportunities and freedoms. They arrived as immigrants who worked, struggled, and adapted to the new world. Now, this word was new to them, okay? It was new to them, so you got to think about it, people. Europeans are immigrants, they are foreigners. So, how is it that a foreigner or an immigrant can tell a native what to do on his own land? All right, that's due to the conquering. Also, there was a room, well, there were several rooms where it actually had pictures of Europeans' faces with their personal information showing their port of arrival. It's like a list of alien passengers in the ships. So it actually had a picture of their face, their families, and a lot of them didn't have surnames. A lot of the Slavics that entered didn't have surnames. And it's a room that's dedicated to showing how, like it kind of reminds you of a passport, but it's not a passport. Okay. So 12 million immigrants entered the United States through Ellis Island between 1892 and 1954.
Whoa.
In the peak year 1907, over 1 million immigrants stepped across the portal. Legislation enacted in 1924, however, dramatically reduced the number of immigrants allowed into the United States and changed the process of entering for all. Not until 1965 did the nation ease restrictions and open a new era of immigration. Okay? Remember, people, Europeans are foreigners. Anytime they say that they're American, you got to correct them. You got to correct them, people. Because if you don't correct them, they stand as the sovereign. They stand as the ruler. All right? Now,
I don't think y'all heard what this man said. I think this was very important when he said, and you probably heard it. He said, you got to correct them. You can consider yourself a white American, but technically you're a European American. And I always tell people all the time, I think even calling white people is a more of a classism thing. It's more of a class thing. It's this is why, if you ever notice, a lot of white Americans don't like to be called Caucasian. Because don't forget, those are the Caucasus Mountains of Georgia, Russia. When you call somebody Caucasians, you're basically calling them a wildebeest or a caveman. So definitely, you got to be. You don't got to be careful, but you just got to educate yourself on that one. Again, I'll say it again. A lot of these people, you know, what's is the facts? We are the Americans. They are U.S. citizens. Yes, you're right. Bit from was it? Bit from BD Day, I think. Dies. You got a cool name, man. Shout out to Bit. I'm gonna call you Bit. You're right, Bit. I have to agree with that. We are Americans. They are U.S. citizens. Yes, because of Ellis Island. And like I said, they got a 60-40 chance of, because when I say 60-40, no matter how you look at it, you could say, yeah, 60% of people didn't come from Ellis Island, or you could say the 40% came from Ellis Island. You can say that, or vice versa. At the end of the day, there was a large population of Europeans coming to America, North America, or the United States country. You know, so yeah, that's something you have to think about. Like, yo, built from bad days. Oh, built from bad days. All right, built from bad days. Okay, shout out to you. I like that. Built from bad days. I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna try to remember that. Shout out, built from bad days. But yeah, that's something we have to. This is why I had the show like 8 months ago, and I wanted to continue it, but something came up. I believe what came up. I mean, what we were talking about. are Black Americans or foundational Black Americans the purest Americans? Are we the purest Americans? And the most important thing I brought up is I said we don't bring cultures from other countries because this is our country. You could look down our generation. Our generation starts technically in America. Our generations don't start from DC where Ellis Island is, or it doesn't start from Europe. I mean, doesn't start from England or Germany or Dutch or no. All of our legacy starts in America. We didn't have to get put it this way. As he said, as Slavics, they didn't have surnames. So that's something to actually really think about. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with being an Ellis Island baby. You just came, like I said, you just came over here like the Haitians did. Remember back in I think the early '90s, we seen like 80 Haitians on one big ass boat, one big ass canoe. Everybody had one of them little, them shopping bags that they had with the texture. I forgot, was some type of plastic texture. Yeah, that's how white people came or Europeans came to this country. But don't forget, they were dirty. These were dirty people. A lot of these people look black because of how much dirt that was on them. Don't forget, they took a what 2-3 month trip from England or wherever part of Europe they came to America. Like, yeah, they wasn't cleaning themselves.
They have an oath of allegiance. Anytime you become a naturalized citizen, you have a national citizen, which is the highest ranked citizen. Those are the Aboriginal indigenous people of the land. Then you have naturalized citizens. Those are the foreigners that come over here to the Americas to become citizens. Okay? And then you have subject citizens, which are like 14th Amendment, border states, people with no nationality, etc. And
Randall, am I right or wrong? They came over here the same way the Haitians came over here in the '90s. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just it's coming to a point now in America. The Europeans or the white Americans can't talk shit really about the Haitians. We could say, yeah, they need to go back and come back here the way that they're supposed to come back, because laws change and stuff like that. But we can't act like, oh yeah, you know what? The Polish didn't do it, the Germans didn't do it, the Italians didn't do it, the Irish didn't do it, the Dutch didn't do it, the British didn't do it. They all did it the same way. Now the question is, where did these Caribbeans get it from? Because don't forget, there were Caribbeans that came came through Ellis Island. Because don't forget, they were building the Panama Bridge. Some of them didn't go back, like Cicely Tyson's family. So it's coming to a point we have to look at history. Things are backfiring on white lives. Shout out to Randall. But yeah, this is just something to think about. Like, well, y'all did the same thing too. This is why I said, like, yeah, I could talk about immigrants. I could say, like, yeah, well, you know what? Y'all got to get y'all fucking shit together. You can't always look for Black Daddy to help you. I have always told them that. You can't look for Black Daddy to help you all the time. You know? And everybody seen that Haitian guy, they put the fucking ankle monitor on him. He just broke down, started crying with his immigration papers in his hand. That shit was crazy. I seen that shit. I was like, I be damn. So, and I'm not laughing at him because it was devastating. The motherfucker broke down, but nigga, you've been over here for 30 years. You didn't think about, trying to get your citizenship or you even dual citizenship? And it comes to a point where you know what, I can't feel bad for you anymore. You know, sometimes you got to say, "Yo, I actually put myself in this bad situation." You know, I know. I'm gonna tell y'all a story. Like this was probably like 15, 20 years ago. I used to mess with this Cape Verdean girl. I didn't know she. Well, she kind of told me she had a husband because she was about to get deported back. She had a kid and everything. So she married this black dude. Ended up getting her pregnant, and she had to get rid of the baby because you can't go to court pregnant and try to say, "Yeah, I want a divorce," and the baby ain't even hit this niggas. It's a oh man, it's a weird story, man. I still actually do keep up with that girl. She's the sweetest thing in the world. But at the end of the day, she did the right thing. She got married. She got married with somebody that she actually liked. You don't got to be in love with somebody to marry, but at least like the person. Don't be like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this, yada yada yada. Like, and they always do that in Chinese drama. Oh yeah, this is more of a family thing or a financial stability thing. No, this is like, well, you know what? I like this person, so you know what? I can at least give it a try. While I'm still trying to get my rights. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. But again, it comes to certain situations like that. You know, even I always tell people all the time, Asian people be like looking to be getting married by other men and stuff. This is why if you ever notice a lot of Asians and Indians, they turn into black men to marry them because they want their citizenship. When I do it, I would tell you I advise you not to do it, especially Indian. They like to lick cow poop and shit like that, and they don't wash their hands. They be cooking with their feet and shit, man. I seen it in some videos, man. That shit was crazy. Yeah, you just gotta be careful, man. Give me a second. I want to try something out.
And last but not least, you have
Okay, but yeah, let's get back into this.
aliens. Those are the people that come to this land and remain foreigners and basically don't have any real documentation to prove such.
Mm.
Okay? So they have an oath of allegiance. This is something else I took a picture of. And it says the final step in becoming a naturalized citizen of the United States is taking the oath of allegiance at a formal naturalization ceremony. The video outright shows group of new citizens at the recent ceremony swearing this oath. Now, this is what they say. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or a citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required by law, that I will perform non-combatant service in the armed forces of the United States when required by law, that I will perform work of national importance under civilian direction when required by the law, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, so help me God. That is all trickery. All right? All trickery. Wake up, people. All right?
So,
Last weekend in Mobile, Alabama, there was
the reason why I wanted y'all to watch that, I wanted to show y'all how kind of the system works. You know, we're gonna watch this probably right here. I don't want to get totally deep in it, but we were watching how the system works. I think watching how the system works is very important. And it pimps game. Now we're gonna watch the dark story of the hospital of Ellis Island, and this is where a lot of these people used to get tested at and all this other cool stuff. That's what I read up on Ellis
The
Island.
Statue of Liberty rises from New York Harbor, torch lifted high, welcoming the tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Every school child knows the poem. Every tourist takes a photograph. But 300 yards away, on the same island, there is a place the postcards never show. A place where the welcome stopped, where hope went to die. 29 crumbling buildings, a contagious disease ward where patients coughed out their lungs behind glass walls. A psych ward with a cage bolted across the front porch, a morgue with tiered concrete seating where doctors watched autopsies like spectators at a sporting event, a furnace large enough to consume entire bodies, and a single mirror hanging above a dirty sink reflecting the Statue of Liberty for a woman who would never touch American soil. Between 1902 and 1951, more than 1.2 million sick and disabled immigrants passed through this hospital. 3,500 of them never left. Half were children. They came across the Atlantic in steerage, vomiting in the dark, praying for a new life. They arrived at Ellis Island, were marked with a piece of chalk, and were separated.
Remember when I was telling you, I was like, yo, a lot of these people came and they just never came back. It's because they came over here with diseases and shit. A lot of these kids die, and this is where I say hygiene plays a perfect it plays a part in a lot of these people dying. And we got to look at the history of the Europeans, the white Europeans. They haven't had a great history of cleanliness. Don't forget, there was one time they were suffering from fucking syphilis. There was another time they were suffering from the Black Plague because they they were just fucking up, you know. Then don't forget, they came over here with smallpox and damn near eradicated tribes. Like, come on, like, this is the history. This is the history of Ellis Island babies. You know, and plus, don't forget, if you're around a dirty nigga, and this is why a lot of black people don't like to be around dirty niggas. This is one reason why black people don't like to be around dirty people. Like, yo, you can get sick. I have to tell certain people, yo, get the fuck out your booger box, man. Go get a tissue. Why are you picking in your booger box right now? You know, so yeah.
From their families forever. Some were cured and released, some were deported, and some died in beds still marked only with the country they had fled. This is not a ghost story. This is the Hospital of Broken Dream. This is Ellis Island's forgotten side. Segment 1. The chalk marks on January 1st, 1892. Ellis Island opened its doors as the primary federal immigration station in the United States.
Look how dirty them niggas is right there. Them niggas is dirty. They came over here dirty, man. And this is where I have to explain. The Moors taught these people how to clean, and they still didn't keep up with it. Don't forget, Queen Elizabeth, the white woman. Was it Queen Elizabeth? I think it was Queen Elizabeth. She couldn't stay clean. They said she only washed up twice in her life. Once at the wedding, and the next time when she died. That was the last time she washed up. These are dirty people, and she was considered royalty. She didn't brush her teeth. A lot of these people back in the days, they used to think like, yo, if I stay dirty, that's purity. That's purity. Then you got these Moors like, whoa, yo. What the fuck is going on? This is why if you go into a lot of these European countries, you see fountains like these big ass fountains, or if you're like rich, you got these fountains that people wash up in. Yeah, so, because that's how the Moors used to do it. The Moors was all dirty. This is why. Remember that time I was telling y'all all the time. Remember I was telling St. Michael's. I was like, St. Michael's, you talk about the Moors a lot, but you got to understand the Moors look down on other Moors that date white people or Europeans because they consider that bestiality. A lot of these Moors, the commit people, and I'm talking about the commit people, even the commit, the ones that be doing them weird looking sculptures of people with wee wees in their people's mouths and shit like that. Those people, they taught the Greeks how to live. A lot of these people were walking on fours, and the Moors and these Kemet people taught them how to stand on twos. And I know it seems like I'm kicking their backs in, but this is the history. You know, I always tell you I don't like to get into shit like that, because I know people feel bad. But my nigga, this is what happened. Instead of trying, and I always say, instead of y'all trying to beat down on Black Americans, don't look how much Black Americans helped you. From the Moors to Black Americans, Black natives. Don't forget, in this country, a lot of these Europeans were they were on the border of eating each other. If it wasn't for the black man or the black native, nigga, y'all would have had a smaller population than y'all have now, So just think of it.
Next 6 decades, more than 12 million immigrants would pass through its inspection halls, their eyes fixed on the Statue of Liberty rising from the harbor. But not everyone made it through. The medical inspection was called the line inspection. Immigrants climbed a long flight of stairs to the registry room, where doctors watched for anyone who became lightheaded or had trouble navigating. The entire examination took about 30 seconds per person. A single doctor might see 400 to 500 immigrants in a single day. During peak immigration in the early 1900s, nearly 1 million people per year passed through Ellis Island. Anyone who limped, coughed, or showed any sign of illness was marked with a piece of white chalk. The Public Health Service doctors used a coded system of letters. B for back problems.
Yeah, that's how much dirt y'all niggas had on y'all. Yeah, y'all niggas was dirty out there. The kids look like they've been playing in dirt for like 3 days. The mama looked like she put on the wrong foundation. Somebody gave her the darker foundation. And like I said, it's not to beat down on y'all, but this is history, man. History is a motherfucker sometimes, There's some very bad history about Black Americans. Yeah. I just got to deal with it. I got to deal with it. I say, how many times how many times I've been saying, yo, Black Americans fucked up when they integrated, when they fought for, was it migrating? A lot of these Black migration people. The thing about the civil rights that I didn't like, they always want to be equal to the white man. I want to be better. Oh, I just say, yo, leave us the fuck alone. Let us grow. And I think, as I always tell people, the fucked up thing that the government didn't do is give Black Americans reparations earlier. If they would have gave Black Americans reparations earlier, this country would be bigger and better than what it is now. Yes, y'all don't gotta worry about problems. You don't gotta worry about Black issues. All you have to worry about is staying in your own community and building. And I'm not saying bring back segregation. I'm a separatist type of person. I believe in separating people if it's a problem. Like, you see how a lot of this shit is a problem right now? If these people can't get along with Black people, you always got some shit to say about Black people. If you always trying to trigger a Black person or an Asian or a Latinos or even your own people, white people, you need to be separated from them. You do. And I'm not saying, oh yeah, we need to bring some shit like that in. Because at the end of the day, this is a democracy, as I guess we call it. But yeah, it, it's a funny thing to talk about.
F for face, H for heart, L for lameness, P for physical and lung problems, SE for scalp conditions, X for suspected mental illness, trachoma, a highly contagious eye disease, hernia, a K, goiter, a G. 1 out of every 5 arrivals received a chalk mark. Approximately 80% of immigrants passed the inspection without being detained. The other 20% were pulled out of line. Among those, about 10% were held at the hospital for further medical care. The rest were released after additional examination. They were separated from their families. Without warning, a mother who passed inspection might be sent to the mainland while her sick child was detained for weeks or months. A father who showed no symptoms might be deported because his daughter had tuberculosis. This was not cruelty for its own sake. It was the law. To enter the United States, you had to be healthy. Otherwise, you were sent back across the ocean. The government was terrified of importing the germs of the world. Typhoid, malaria, cholera, diphtheria, tuberculosis. These, I see, were not abstract threats. They were the plagues that had decimated Europe for centuries. To their credit, no major epidemic can be traced to a patient of the Ellis Island hospital. But the system was brutal, especially for those who could not speak English and did not understand what was happening to them, especially for those who had traveled for weeks in steerage, only to be told that their new life would begin with a cage. Segment 2, the Island of Tears, the Ellis Island Immigrant Hospital, officially known as USPA's Hospital No. 43, opened in 1902 under the authority of the United States Public Health Service. It was, by any measure, a marvel of early modern medicine. The hospital was built in phases. The facility encompassed both a general hospital and a separate pavilion-style contagious disease hospital. The contagious disease wards were separated from the main hospital by a strip of water based on the mistaken belief that germs could not travel across open water. Separate pavilions were built for specific diseases, 2 for tuberculosis, and individual pavilions for whooping cough, measles, scarlet fever, diphtheria, and favus, a fungal scalp infection. The general hospital complex contained 4 operating rooms, a maternity ward, a psychiatric ward, a laundry facility, kitchens, a laboratory, an autopsy, and a morgue with an 8-cadaver refrigerator. A mattress autoclave could sterilize entire beds with scorching heat. At its peak, the complex was the largest institution ever built by the U.S. Public Health Service. In 1914 alone, the hospital treated 10,000 patients from 75 different countries. By the time it closed, nearly 1.2 million sick immigrants had received medical care within its walls. That is approximately 1 out of every 10 people who passed through Ellis Island. For every immigrant who walked through the immigration station, 1 in 10 walked into the hospital. 350 babies were born there, many named after the doctors and nurses who delivered them. For those who survived, the hospital was a gateway. For those who did not, it was a coffin. Approximately 3,500 immigrants died on Ellis Island. Half of them were children. The leading cause of death among children was scarlet fever, a bacterial illness that could kill within days. Other common killers included tuberculosis, diphtheria, measles, and whooping cough. There were no antibiotics in the early...
So again, I said it was a hygiene problem. I believe people got to understand that, and this is why I had to talk about the history of the European, specifically the white European. They weren't the cleanest people. This is why they were catching diseases. This is why, if you ever heard about a lot of these women dying at young age because they weren't taking care of themselves, or they were sleeping with a dirty dick nigga. You know? So you gotta, this is what you gotta look at.
Years of the hospital. No vaccines for most of these diseases. Doctors had only rudimentary treatments, bed rest, fresh air, isolation, and prayer. When a child died, the body was carried to the morgue. The morgue was not a place of quiet dignity. It was a surgical theater complete with floor-to-ceiling compartments for storing the dead and tiered concrete bleachers where doctors and medical students sat to observe autopsies. They came from across the United States and even from Europe because Ellis Ellis Island was the largest health service institution in the country. Strange diseases passed through the port that were rarely seen elsewhere. The dead became teaching material. The autopsy amphitheater, with its built-in morgue and concrete seating, was a well-known teaching hall. Lime stalactites formed by water dripping through the concrete over the years now hang from the ceiling. A small table where autopsies were performed sits on a tiled floor in front of the raised seating. The cabinets where bodies were stored before and after examination still stand. For the families of the deceased, there was no funeral on American soil. Many of the bodies were sent to Potter's Fields, paupers' graves on Hart Island in the Bronx, where more than 1 million people are buried in mass graves with no headstones and only numbered markers. The dead simply vanish, their names recorded in ledgers that few have ever read. Many were buried with no marker at all, leaving no trace for descendants to find. Segment 3. The architecture of...
So I think people need to pay attention to that. A lot of these people who were buried, or you say, yeah, my family died in, a lot of these people can't find these burials because they didn't have no gravestones. You know, this is why I say a lot of this stuff historically kills white people because of diseases. You know, and sometimes you have to sometimes you got to think, was a lot of this stuff inherited to them, like these diseases and stuff, like you'll skip a generation or a family member and go to the other family. There's something to think about, man. You know, this is why I say cleanliness and, you know, just being clean and taking care of yourself is very important. It's a must. You know, this is why I say working hard, man. If your family got a history of high blood pressure, you need to take days off of work because it can fucking kill you. You know, this is why sometimes I apologize when I can't come on the show because I'm just not feeling good. Like within, I think, a week and a half or two, I'm gonna take a whole week off, and we're gonna start back up on a Monday. You know, so it's just some steam to blow. That's it. I'll still be putting out videos and stuff like that, but yeah.
Suffering the contagious disease wards were among the most carefully designed spaces in the hospital. The tuberculosis pavilion featured 2 sinks in each patient room. One sink was designated for spitting up blood, the other was for washing. The sinks drained into separate plumbing systems to keep contamination out of the water supply. This was cutting-edge medicine for its time, but for the patient it was a daily reminder that their own body was a threat. Above the 2 grimy sinks, a small mirror hung on the wall. In that mirror, the Statue of Liberty was reflected from a nearby window. For a woman quarantined in that room, that reflection would be the closest she would ever come to freedom. Photographer Stephen Wilkes, who spent years documenting the decaying hospital, described the image. "I got chills because I just had this vision of an Eastern European woman, very much like my grandmother, who saw the statue every morning when she got out of bed to spit or wash her face." The tuberculosis wards were particularly cruel. Patients with the disease were placed in isolation pavilions that looked like eerie apartment buildings with screened porches where they could sit in the fresh air without infecting others. The prevailing medical wisdom held that sunlight and fresh air were the best cures for tuberculosis, so patients were wheeled onto these porches every day, wrapped in blankets, shivering in the harbor wind, staring at the Statue of Liberty from behind a screen. Some of them recovered, some of them died right there in the fresh air that was supposed to save them. The psychiatric ward was even more disturbing. Immigrants who were slow to respond to questions, who seemed confused by their surroundings, who showed any sign of what doctors called mental deficiency, were marked with an X and sent to the psychopathic ward. The psych ward had a cage fitted across what would otherwise look like a front porch. Patients were allowed to come out into this enclosed space during the day for outdoor time. The cage was not meant to punish. It was meant to contain maintain, but the image is unmistakable. Human beings, already traumatized by weeks of ocean travel, already terrified by the inspection process, locked behind bars in a country they had dreamed of for years. Some of these patients were simply confused. The registry room where immigrants were inspected was incredibly loud, filled with thousands of people speaking dozens of languages. That English might not be your first language, and that you had been waiting in line for hours. It was no wonder that some people seemed slow to respond, but the doctors did not offer second chances. A single misinterpreted question could mean deportation. A single confused look could mean a cage. The irony was not lost on anyone who worked there. The most frightening diseases were not necessarily the ones that stop an immigrant from entering the country. If you survived diphtheria, you would return to the immigration process and likely be admitted. But if you had a less serious condition, a bum knee or a bad back, you would be sent home because you could not work. And America wanted healthy laborers, not sick beggars. Only about 2% of immigrants who were detained in the hospital were ultimately deported. Approximately 98% were healed and admitted. That means about 50,000 of the 1.2 million patients who entered the hospital were sent back across the ocean. For those 50,000, the dream ended in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, visible from the hospital windows, close enough to touch, impossible to reach. The hospital also had its own laundry facility with original equipment still intact. A massive autoclave was used to sterilize anything that touched a patient. Clothing, hospital gowns, sheets, and mattresses. Over 3,000 pieces of laundry were washed and sanitized daily. The power plant generated electricity for the entire complex, powered by a steam-driven generator that still looms in the darkness like a sleeping giant. A kitchen prepared meals for hundreds of patients and staff every day. The hospital was a self-contained city designed to keep sick people alive and healthy people safe. Nurses who worked in the contagious disease wards often became immune to the illnesses they treated. They developed antibodies to tuberculosis, diphtheria, scarlet fever, and measles. They did not develop antibodies to the emotional toll. Watching children die day after day, knowing that their parents were on the mainland, waiting, not knowing if their child was alive or dead. Watching families separated by a piece of chalk. Watching immigrants who had crossed an ocean for freedom locked in a cage because their English was not good enough. Remarkably, no staff members died from diseases contracted from their patient. The safety protocols were effective, but the psychological damage was real. Many nurses and doctors left Ellis Island with permanent scars, haunted by the faces of the children they could not save, the families they could not reunite. Segment 4. The Forgotten Side. Ellis Island's doctors were commissioned officers of the U.S. Public Health Service. Their role was confined to medical examination, diagnosis, and treatment. They played no role in deciding whether an immigrant was admitted or deported. That decision was left to the U.S. immigrant inspectors, but the doctors' chalk marks were the first step on the path to either freedom or exile. One of the most notable physicians to serve at Ellis Island was Dr. Carl Ramos, posted to the island on and off over a span of 20 years, from 1902 to 1922. Ramos was a Chicago native educated at Rush Medical College. He joined the Marine Hospital Service in 1899 and became adept at detecting contagious diseases like trachoma, favus, diphtheria, measles, tuberculosis, and hookworm. Between his postings at Ellis Island, he served as chief of the Public Health Service's quarantine station in Honolulu. After leaving Ellis Island, he set up a private practice as a psychiatrist, wrote several books, and eventually worked as a doctor on United Fruit Company ships, traveling between New York and destinations like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Panama Canal Zone. But for every doctor but Ramos, there were anonymous doctors who performed thousands of chalk mark examinations, who signed thousands of death certificates. Their names are mostly lost to history. Their work is preserved only in the crumbling building and the fading ledgers. The hospital complex began winding down in 1930 when the Contagious Disease Hospital was partially closed. The facility continued to
I believe this is what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna go on to the next video because we've seen a lot of this. This is a learning lesson to a lot of the white community. You gotta keep yourself up. You gotta take care of yourself. Yeah, black people suffer from high cholesterol and probably high blood pressure. But you got to understand a lot of these people, like I said, is a 60-40 that you came from, or 40-60 that you came, your ancestors came from Ellis Island. You don't know if a lot of this stuff was inherited to your kids or to you. So you got to be careful.
Everything behind home, family, even identity, and sail into an uncertain life in America. This question has echoed for centuries, carried by millions of immigrants who arrived with nothing more than hope and the fear of the unknown. But behind every celebration of the American dream, there were harsh truths, crowded ships, diseases, exploitation, and the painful struggle to survive in a land that didn't always welcome them. Some stories were recorded in old manifests, some remembered by modern historians, and others survive only in oral stories whispered across generations. We're going to follow the journey of those early immigrants, why they came, what they faced, and how their lives shaped the country we know today. Their footsteps tell us one thing: the road to America was never easy, but it changed the world forever. And before we meet the people who risked everything,
I'm going to say this. You see the difference between Caribbean immigrants and white immigrants? A lot of these Caribbeans sacrificed themselves to come to this country. We look at Ellis Island now. You look at Ellis Island and they sacrificed themselves to make a difference for America. And they didn't say it like that, but you could clearly see that, like, they're saying the Caribbeans are accepted here already. America is saying that if you don't got that white skin, you're not accepted over here. We already got these black Americans that already fought for a lot of shit. We don't we don't want nothing like that. None of y'all over here. And this is what I'm gonna say. This is why sometimes a lot of these Caribbeans and these Africans act like this. It is. Look how the government, look how the, not even the government, look how the system treats them. They, this is how so dumb, and I'm gonna say this. I have been telling y'all, I think Trump is a racist piece of shit. I only think only people he like is money. That's it. But also you have to understand how dumb his logic is. He's saying that there's too many Caribbeans over here and too many Africans and too many Latinos over here. But you open the carpet, you have the red carpet, you put the red carpet down for these white Afrikaners. I have to say that. I will be biased if I didn't. And these Afrikaners is fucking lazy. A motherfucker gets down here, he strangles his girl, I think in Virginia or North Carolina. A lot of them went back because they're not used to not beating their women. White Afrikaners like beating their women, like taking the coochie. Like let's personally be honest about the white Afrikaners from South Africa. And I'm not saying all of them like that, but there's a high percentage of them that likes to do that. It's different if they don't put hands on their women. You know? Look how they treat the black Afrikaners. Like, come on.
need to understand the world they were running from and the America they hoped to find. Before they ever set foot in America, millions of people across Europe and Asia were living through the same question. If I stay here, will my family survive? From famine in Ireland to political crackdowns in Russia, and from poverty in Italy to rising tensions in parts of the Ottoman Empire, life felt increasingly unstable. One old migration record from the 1890s even described whole villages leaving at once, as if tomorrow no longer belonged to them. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Many immigrants didn't leave because they wanted a better life. They left because staying meant no life at all. A modern historian notes how wages in Southern Europe dropped so low that families sometimes survived on bread and onions for weeks. And in oral stories passed down in Eastern Europe, parents reportedly told their children, "America is not a dream, it's our last door."
I want to say this. Give me a second, everybody. Will I be wrong if I say a lot of these immigrants were looking for a handout? They were looking for a handout. I need you. I'm gonna push it back a little bit. I need you to listen to what the guys say. Listen.
Left because staying meant no life at all. Grinsham described whole villages leaving at once, as if tomorrow no longer belonged to them. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Many immigrants didn't leave because they wanted a better life. They left because staying meant no life at all. A modern historian notes how wages in Southern Europe dropped so low that families sometimes survived on bread and onions for weeks. And in oral stories passed down in Eastern Europe, parents reportedly told their children, "America is not a dream, it's our last door." Factories were shutting down, farmland was shrinking, and new political forces were rising, pushing ordinary people into fear and uncertainty. In one old government report from the period, officials warned that population pressure will force migration on a scale never seen before. And they were right. Within just a few decades, over 20 million people would pack their lives into one suitcase and head toward the Atlantic. And so, with the world behind them collapsing, the next step was the hardest, finding a way to cross the ocean. A journey that looked simple on paper, but was anything but simple in real life. For many families, the hardest moment wasn't the ocean crossing, it was the goodbye. People hugged in silence at train stations, knowing they might never meet again. One old immigration diary mentions a mother whispering, "Write to me, even if you have nothing to say." And here's a small truth that often gets overlooked. Most immigrants didn't know what America really looked like. They only knew it was not here. But here's the part people rarely talk about. The journey itself could feel like a gamble with your life. Most immigrants traveled in steerage, the lowest deck, cramped rooms, poor ventilation, and hundreds of people packed together.
Like the Africans. Y'all talk about the fucking slave trade. Y'all voluntarily lived like slaves. Y'all Ellis Island babies voluntarily lived like slaves. That shit is crazy. I can't gasp to that.
A government inspector in the early 1900s described it as air so thick it felt like you could cut it with a knife. And from oral stories passed down, some families remembered counting the days not by sunrise, but by how many people fell sick. Life at sea slowly became routine. Bread, soup, waiting, sleeping, repeating. Storms sometimes shook the entire ship, and according to one old maritime report, there were nights when waves slammed so hard the people thought the hull might crack. And yet, even in those moments, there were small sparks of hope. Children playing, someone humming a familiar song, or a stranger sharing a piece of fruit saved from home. After weeks at sea, the ocean finally gave way to land. And for many immigrants, the first sight of America wasn't a city or a street, it was a distant shape rising through the morning mist. For many immigrants, their first moment in America wasn't excitement, it was confusion. Ships crowded the harbor, officials shouted instructions in English, and people held tight to their bags as if they might disappear. A traveler's notebook from 1903 described the scene as thousands moving, but no one knowing where to stand. And here's the part that surprises a lot of people. Even before stepping on American soil, some families were already terrified of being sent back. Inside the processing center, everything felt like a test.
Doctors checked eyes, hands, and posture in just a few seconds, a system that historians later called speed medicine.
People were marked with chalk on their coats, an X for possible illness, a circle for eye problems.
And from oral stories passed down in immigrant families, some remembered whispering to their children, "Stand straight, don't cough." After the medical checks came the interviews, names, jobs, how much money they carried. One old registry book notes that some arrivals had only a few coins left after the long trip.
But the moment the inspector stamped their entry, people described feeling as if a weight finally lifted.
For the first time, America didn't feel like a rumor, it felt real.
But stepping on at night just to distract themselves from hunger.
Work didn't come easy either. Factories hired immigrants because they accepted the toughest jobs, long hours, low pay, and dangerous machines.
One early industrial
Who does that sound like? Remember that topic question I was having? I said the reason why a lot of these people hire immigrants is because you can pay them half of what you're gonna pay a black person or a white person. Then they'll bring their cousins, so it's like getting actually a 2-for-1 deal. This is what they were doing to white people. White people were doing this to other white people. This is why I always explain to people. A lot of these people, a lot of white people don't really like each other. I think it's a historical thing. I don't think it's a personality thing. I think it's a historical thing.
survey recorded that injury rates among immigrants were nearly double compared to native-born workers.
Still, people pushed through, believing that every ship survived brought them one step closer to stability.
But even as they struggled, immigrant communities began forming something powerful, neighborhoods where people shared language, food, and survival stories. And those small pockets of familiarity would shape the next chapter of their American journey.
Here's something many immigrants didn't expect. The moment they found someone who spoke their language, America suddenly felt less frightening.
Little Italy, Chinatown, Jewish neighborhoods in the Lower East Side. These places became the first soft landing for newcomers.
A community journal from 1908 noted that newcomers often arrived with nothing but a name of a cousin, a street, or just hope.
These neighborhoods weren't just places to live, they were survival.
Also, too, a lot of y'all gotta understand the reason why I'm making a comparison of Caribbean. I'm comparing how immigrants got to this country. I want to say 100 and some change ago, 100 and some change ago. So like 110, 120 years ago, maybe even 30. You got to understand that a lot of these immigrants, they came over here with like, what does the African say? I came over here with $2 in my pocket and I made it. Yeah. This is what's happening. Like, y'all, and like I said, this is more of a. I'm making these points because I'm showing you that y'all really can't judge the Caribbeans and the Africans because y'all niggas did the same thing too. Y'all did the same thing.
Inside these neighborhoods, daily life kept old traditions alive. Italian bakeries sold bread like the ones from Sicily, Chinese herbal shops lined the streets, and Yiddish theaters played late into the night.
A cultural researcher later wrote that these spaces work like memory anchors, holding people to the worlds they left behind.
And in many oral stories, families recalled how a familiar smell from a kitchen could erase a whole day of loneliness. These communities also built something practical, support networks. There were mutual aid groups that helped with funerals, rent, job searches, and even translations for government papers. One old association ledger described its mission simply as, "No one survives alone." And through these networks, immigrants slowly discovered that they weren't just guests in America. They were becoming part of it. But even with community support, life in America was far from easy. Because the next challenge waiting for immigrants wasn't hunger or homesickness, it was the way society looked at them.
Here's the moment the dream cracked. Just when immigrants started to feel a little settled, America pushed back.
Newspapers printed headlines calling them unfit or dangerous.
Some political groups blamed immigrants for crime, low wages, or even diseases.
One historian wrote that this era proved a harsh truth: arrival doesn't guarantee acceptance.
The biggest threat wasn't hunger or poverty, it was rejection.
By the early 1900s, prejudice had turned into laws.
The Chinese Exclusion Act remained in force, and new restrictions targeted people from Southern and Eastern Europe.
Government boards measured desirability, judging people by language, looks, and skin.
And according to one oral story, many families said the hardest part wasn't the law itself, but feeling unwanted in a place they hoped would save them.
Suspicion followed immigrants into their daily lives. Jobs became harder to find, landlords charged higher rents, and some neighborhoods hung signs that said, "No foreigners." A community ledger from the time noted simply, "We work twice as hard to be seen as half as good."
And yet, even under pressure, these communities kept going, because survival was no longer just personal, it was collective. But prejudice didn't...
That's very interesting what this guy said, because Black Americans say that shit all the time, and they said that, oh yeah, we're crying victim. You know, we're gaslighting. But white America been doing that shit since the 1800s. Listen.
And yet, even under pressure, these communities kept going, because survival was no longer just personal, it was collective.
But prejudice didn't break them. In fact, pressure did something unexpected. It pushed immigrant communities to organize, to fight for rights, and to build a louder voice. And that's where the next chapter begins.
Here's the twist people didn't expect. The same immigrants once seen as weak became the ones who pushed America toward fairness.
Factory workers, garment workers, miners, many of them were immigrants, began organizing strikes.
A labor historian noted that these movements were powered by people who had nothing but courage left. When you have little to lose, your voice becomes louder. Neighborhood groups, women's clubs, and mutual aid societies began to connect with unions and reformers.
Immigrant women played a huge role, especially in the garment industry, leading marches even when the risk was high. In one early community record, a leader said, "If they won't hear us alone, they will hear us together." And slowly, these voices shaped better safety rules.
Described the crash as a silence that spread across the nation because so many machines stopped at once.
For immigrants who already had...
I'm not going to do that one. That one's just way too long. No. I'm going to do one more, everybody. Like I said, I'm not going to do a long show today because it's Ellis Island. You know,
Europe was suffering from hunger and political and economic unrest. During the 19th century, 52 million people left the continent. In many cases, their home countries helped support the immigration of entire families to help alleviate poverty back home. The mass immigration required organized collection points on the European side of the Atlantic. Many people departed from Hamburg. After a devastating fire in 1842, the port city was rebuilt. The harbor was massively expanded, as were the shipyards. Hamburg became a gateway to the world. While sailing ships used to need 2 months to cross the Atlantic, by the late 19th century, modern steamships made the journey in just 2 weeks. A growing number of migrants were now arriving from Eastern Europe and the Balkans. The Hamburg America shipping line built a camp for them on the outskirts of the city. Passengers had to endure a 14-day quarantine. This prevented the outbreak of diseases on board the ships, which could cause people to be turned back in New York. Passengers traveling first class had their belongings packed securely in trunks. Their tickets cost 4 times the price of a lowest class ticket. But this is where the ship operators made their profit. Passengers were crammed into bunks in rooms with no windows. Immigration became a huge moneymaker. Ships took passengers west and loaded up with cargo for the return journey east. For many migrants, it meant saying farewell forever and a departure to the unknown. Thanks to growing competition among shipping lines, even third-class passengers soon had more amenities on their journey. At the same time, ticket prices dropped. In 1850, the journey cost an average annual wage. By 1900, it was 1 month's income. Families who couldn't afford to send everyone often sent the men ahead first. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, wrote the poet Emma Lazarus in honor of the Statue of Liberty, which welcomed the ships bringing immigrants to New York. But for those who hoped to achieve the American dream, there was still a hurdle to overcome. Ellis Island, island of hope and tears. Passengers of wealth or social standing were allowed to step off the boat and go straight to Manhattan. Passengers in third class were made to submit to a rigorous screening process. The initial interview took only a few minutes. The medical exam was an ordeal. This was what decided who would have a chance at the American dream. At first, only passengers suffering from disease were rejected. Later, the authorities also blacklisted prostitutes, the poor, anarchists, the illiterate, and Chinese people. Those denied entry were returned to where they came from, at the cost of the shipping company. On some days, up to 12,000 people were processed at Ellis Island. In the late 19th century, Germans were the largest group of immigrants, followed by people from Ireland and Britain. But many Russians, Hungarians, Italians, and others sought their fortunes in the New World. For passengers traveling in first or second class who went straight to Manhattan, the American dream was not such a reach. The others who disembarked at Ellis Island had a more difficult path. But still, some rose to a life of prosperity in their new home. Levi Strauss, born in Bavaria, emigrated with his mother in 1847 and went on to make Levi jeans a mass consumer product. Heinrich Steinweg arrived in New York from Hamburg in 1850. He went on to become world famous for his Steinway pianos. Henry John Heinz, who invented tomato ketchup, was born in the U.S., but his father came from Germany. As did another immigrant, Friedrich Trumpf, grandfather of Donald Trump. Before and after becoming president, Donald Trump campaigned for more restrictive immigration policies and for a wall along the border to Mexico.
I told you. He's an Ellis Island baby. He's an immigrant. I told you, Donald Trump is an immigrant. And this is why a lot of people now. But this is the thing. I have been telling people that for years. I was like, this nigga's an immigrant. You know, he's a dirty immigrant too. He's one of them dirty ones. You know, did his family have money? They probably had a little bit of something, but it wasn't like, you know, they made their money in America. They didn't make their money over there in their country. You know, so we got to be honest about that. You know, look, this is the difference. Look it. This is this nigga's grandfather. You know, this is the bottom of the barrel, white people, and I'm being honest. You know, Donald Trump had to forget about his lineage and worry about other things. And shout out to him. You know, he's doing his thing, but like my nigga, don't talk like you came from like, you know, a privileged people. No, your family had to forget about what happened in their country and had to come to America. This is why I always explain to a lot of people, a lot of these people don't have loyalty to America. Black Americans have loyalty to America because we have nowhere else to go to. A lot of y'all can go back to Germany, Poland, Scotland, Dutch, all these Dutch countries. Y'all could go back to these countries and these people can probably most likely will accept you. Black Americans, this is our country right here.
Before and after becoming president, Donald Trump campaigned for more restrictive immigration policies and for a wall along the border to Mexico. The vast majority of European immigrants arrived through New York, even those who planned to continue to the Midwest. Immigrants who stayed in New York generally settled in specific neighborhoods, which became Little Italy, Little Germany, or Little Russia. Their children were automatically granted American citizenship through birthright.
Told y'all, everybody. I'm gonna land right here. I'm only doing a 2-hour show today. I just wanted to show you that, like, yeah, we are talking about immigration all for the last 2 weeks, but I want to show you the other immigrants that were here for 50, 60 years and stuff like that, that anchored their kids over here. Technically, what they did, basically anchoring the kids over here. They used these other white people to build America or expand. Let me not say build because they didn't build really anything. They expanded. Do they had inventions? Yes, they had inventions, but a lot of these inventions are already here. Shout out to the man who made ketchup and Levi jeans and all that other cool shit, but they were already America was already thriving. They came over here where America was already being built and already, you know, they came over here where America was already, you know, fine. We would have done good with or without them. So again, shout out to these people that, you know, that built America. I mean, that helped contribute and expand America. I will say that. I'm gonna land here, everybody. Thank y'all for watching. I don't think I had that many people talking today. Let me see. No, I had Ali. Oh, shout out to Ali Howard. Built from Bad Days, Rando, and Imperial. Shout out to all of y'all. thank y'all for coming on my show. Thank y'all. I wasn't expecting to get a whole bunch of numbers, so don't worry. Like, oh yeah, what's going on? And shout out to X, Kick, and Rumble for actually live streaming this as well. So thank you again. I will see y'all later, and y'all take care. I'll see you tomorrow.